You're tuned in to Steve Megatron on Altered Geek.
Altered Geek. Get altered. Geeky. Altered Geek. From Star Wars to Star Trek, comics to tech. Altered Geek. Get altered. Get geeky. Altered Geek. Pull up a chair 'cause you're an altered geek.
Hello and welcome to Altered Geek. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, and joining me this week is...
DFG and Mike.
I almost said all things Transformers.
No, that's next week.
That's why there was a delay.
Yes.
Because they both start with all.
Uh-huh.
So, speaking of all.
Technically, Altered starts with Al.
So,
Yes.
There's been quite a few things in the geeky world this week.
Yes, there has.
Plus some awesome comments
Yes.
and questions.
Yes, there are.
So, what do we want to start out with first? What bit of awesome?
How about the fact that there's 7 Earths apparently 40 light years away from us right now?
Which does us no good whatsoever.
No.
Because none of us will ever see that day.
Well, I mean, if,
Not in our lifetime.
if we keep destroying the Earth the way we are, we may have to find a new Earth, Planet Bob. I'm sorry, Titan AE. But apparently, astronomers have found at least 7 Earth-sized planets orbiting the same star 40 light years away, according to a study published Wednesday in the journal Nature. The findings were also announced at a news conference at NASA headquarters in Washington. Discovery outside of our solar system is rare because the planets have the winning combination of being similar in size to Earth and being all temperate, meaning they could have water on their surfaces and potentially support life.
Let's also state that it's next to an ultra cool dwarf star, which is only about 4,100 degrees Fahrenheit compared to the 10,000 degrees of our sun, which means that they're all about the proximity of where Mercury would be.
Yeah.
So all 7 planets are in the same system, and they cycle through, like, their year is like in a certain amount of days, and their farthest planet out, the 7th planet in that system, it circles a year in 20 days.
Wow.
So you could be like hundreds and hundreds of years old by the time you die.
Yes.
Maybe even thousands. That must be why they got the lifespans for alien races. So anyways, there are 3 planets in the habitable zone of this star known as TRAPPIST-1e, F, and G. So I was watching actually a video by Philip DeFranco earlier on YouTube, and he more or less stated that, yep, it could take us like, a couple hundred years to get there, or 40 years if they get enough technology built up, or which basically, we could reach that other planet, those planets by the time our sun has like burned out, or humanity kills itself.
Right.
And he says, I'm leaning more towards humanity killing itself.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting concept, but I don't get how that they can, like, say, by estimating their mass, or guess that they may have habitable zones or have water, when I'd be interested to see how they come up with this information, because again, it's science, it's not fact.
Yeah.
So to me, it's kind of I don't know. I enjoy astronomy, but I don't put a lot of faith in it, because they make up all these like billions of years for this, and billions of years for that. And then they estimate how many light years, and we think this planet has this, or this planet has this, but we're not 100% because, you know, we can't go there. So I mean, I think it's kind of a cool concept.
Yeah.
That they've managed to figure this out, but the fact that it's like on every news site, like it's a huge deal that they found 7 Earth-sized planets, is a little bit misleading.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't actually go there, and they don't actually 100% know. So it's almost like me saying 50 light years out, I saw the planet Cybertron, and Optimus Prime waved to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's the same concept to me. So I mean, it's a little bit far-fetched.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just gonna cue TV's Mr. Neil right here because he has a perfect quote for this.
Which one? I've seen a lot lately.
There's an old audio file that I'll be sending you that science train wreck.
Well, here comes another science train wreck.
Well, that was an interesting clip.
Gotta love TV's Mr. Neil, folks.
So, moving on, we have a topic you found.
Yeah, I find stuff on Facebook, and I find legitimate stuff on Facebook.
Well, it's got a misleading headline, but
Yeah, NASCAR fans are outraged at the Monster Energy Girls revealing outfits. Okay, so apparently due to a sponsorship change from Sprint, so Sprint is not doing sponsorship for NASCAR anymore, we now are introduced to the Monster Energy Girls. And apparently they are wearing inappropriate outfits. No, they're not.
well, they do push up their cleavage on purpose in these.
Yes, but again, I could see if it was a midriff or if it was fishnets or if there was more skin being revealed. I mean, that is no more cleavage than I would normally see on somebody walking down the street in the middle of a 100-degree heat summer day. I mean, it's...
Or people of Walmart.
Oh. Not going there. Not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But like...
That's what she said.
Jackass.
But they do have examples in this article, though, of people that are making the point that, have we forgotten history? And they show them like in like basically naked in some of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, but the thing of it is that the one image is not, and just looking at them in the outfit, it's not. And how this is part of a sponsorship deal for NASCAR. So essentially, these are NASCAR cheerleaders. I don't want to dumb down their job or anything like that, but that's essentially what this is to me. And they are wearing all black. The tops are leather-like, and the rest of it's pants with boots.
Well, there's actually a follow-up article that was posted about 2 hours ago.
Okay.
That says that NASCAR drivers don't understand the internet's horror over the Monster Energy Girls.
Okay.
Which captured the attention of the internet last week. Because it's, again, they're all black outfits with knee-high boots and corset-style shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Some would prefer them to wear fire suits instead of dressing like quote-unquote hookers on a quote-unquote family show. So why the internet freak out? It says, I'm trying to quote this. It says, we live in a society where half of us think one way and half of us think another way for the most part about everything. 2010 Daytona 500 winner Jamie McMurray said that at the Daytona International Speedway.
Yeah. Noting
he's not sure why the outfits caused such a stir. He says, I'm not shocked at all that half the people didn't like something about that and that the other half did. And I think if you ask any question about anything, you get about a 50-50 answer right now in the world we live in.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, either way.
But, when I saw the headline, I was like, okay, they're either half naked or something about it is showing, or it's Nipplegate all over again. Who knows? And I look at the image and I'm like, that's tame compared to half the other stuff I've seen online. You know.
Shoot, look at the Super Bowl halftime show.
Oh, don't even remind me.
Any of them.
I know. She gagged all over Metallica. Anyway, what do you got this week? What do you want to talk about?
Well, Big Bang Theory might be renewed for another 2 seasons.
That does not surprise me.
According to recent rumors, it looks like the Big Bang Theory will be renewed for at least 2 more seasons, as all the prime cast are in final negotiations regarding new contracts. Seems like a renewal comes at a high price, as the main stars are said to make about $1 million per episode each. Some of them more than others.
Mm-hmm.
But renewing it would take it to about 12 seasons.
Yeah.
So...
It's funny you're bringing this story up because every so often recently, since I've been back for almost 2.5 months at this point, but from California, but I have recently wanted to go back and rewatch The Big Bang Theory from the beginning, and I still love the show. I still love that first season. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know what? The Big Bang Theory is one of the most popular. You know, it's 10 years old this year. 10 years ago is when that show started.
And it's constantly evolving. Like, the people
Yeah.
that say it's poking fun at geeks, like, they've actually made, like, Sheldon even halfway decent now at this point. Like, he's normalizing a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And someone said to me, "Oh, I like the show better when they didn't all have girlfriends or something." Well, look at and again, this is one of the reasons why I want to go back to the very first couple of seasons and watch and see the difference between then and now. Because if you look at when they didn't have significant others, everyone hated the show. Everyone hated the geek references. Everyone thought that they were making fun of the geeks and fun of geek culture. Everyone was like, "Oh, Community does it better." I'm sorry, no, it didn't.
Well, it played, like, on the awkwardness scale, whereas this, like, it's a little bit played out in a sense, but, like, it's not as bad as when it started, and it's kind of shown, like, what the logical evolution of, like, normal geek would be, like, very awkward and all into they're all inclusive on their toys or their collectibles or whatever, and then they end up going down the route of, I'm married, I have a kid, I have limited space, I can't do this anymore, blah blah blah. Like,
Yeah,
there's other things.
and again, the show's characters have grown over the 10 years that the show has been on. And I like that. I like the character growth. Now, if the Big Bang Theory still was what it was in the first or second season, with Sheldon still being this uptight idiot and everything else, and Leonard was awkward as all. I mean, they do all still have their original character traits that they started the show with. But as you said, they're growing and evolving and changing for the better. And it's giving us more interesting comedy than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they make a Star Wars joke, we all cackle. You know, so. But yeah, it's awesome that it's going to get 2 more years, at least.
So, also in that same vein, well, in the collectibles anyway, new Batman the Animated Series Batcave collectible from DC Comics.
From Toy Fair, yeah, I saw that.
I saw that vignette and I'm like, I like it. But just like the Batmobile and the Batwing, I can't afford it.
Right.
Nor do I have the place to put it. Although, if there were to be a custom Hasbro Stasis pod for Beast Wars, I would be over that.
You would be all over that, huh?
I would have it.
Yep. We also got reveals at Toy Fair from Prime 1 Studios for Beast Wars Megatron. So there's that. A bunch of other stuff.
Optimus Primal is named the next Prime.
Yep.
Masterpiece Dinobots on the way.
Yep.
But we'll get into more of that on All Things Transformers.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks.
So again, superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
So Stephen Amell is open to Arrow switching to flash forwards instead of flashbacks.
Okay, I'll say this now. We're not going to go super in depth. We were going to, and we'll do this next week on AG on Altered Geek. But we were going to talk about the latest 2 episodes of Legends this week. But we're not going to do that because Steve hasn't had a chance to watch them yet, or rewatch them, I should say. But the thing with Arrow, what I'm loving is that the last 2 or 3 episodes, the flashback. Okay, this week's episode had to do with Oliver, but the week before had to do with Renee. Like, I want them to use the flashbacks for other characters at this point. We've had almost 5.5 years of Oliver flashbacks. Flash forwards, fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever because it's something we've never seen. It's something that they can flash forward him and give us a story and then flash back to the present time to figure out how that's going to lead to what they just showed us. So I'm all for flash forwards, but when it comes to the flashbacks, please start using other characters because I'm so sick of all of our flashbacks at this point.
Well, if they did the flash forwards, it would give you kind of a nice taste of where all of them end up.
Yep.
So it would be kind of interesting to see how their repercussions played out.
Absolutely. Abso-friggin-lutely.
So Hugh Jackman recently made a comment as Logan is about to come out, how he would reconsider retirement if Wolverine joined the Avengers.
Yep. I like that idea. I think it's cool, but I don't think it's ever going to happen because I don't think Fox is going to play with Marvel too well when it comes to the X-Men rights. They've had yes, they are playing with them with the Spider-Man stuff, and that's all well and good, but we don't have the same Spider-Man that we had back in 2002 or 2012 or whatever. You know, it's not Tobey Maguire. It's not Andrew Garfield. It's Tom Holland now or whatever his name is. And, you know, that's all well and good, but Hugh has been playing Wolverine for 17 years at this point, and I just don't think, personally, I don't feel that the Fox executives will get their heads out of their asses long enough to see how awesome that would be.
Well, for one, I think that he's realizing he's aging out of it.
He is, yes.
But he could still go toe-to-toe with Downey Jr. and, you know, like Chris Evans and those. Because, like, he's still about the same age as Downey Jr.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he would relatively fit in that universe pretty well. And what's to say that they couldn't just pull Wolverine like they've done with, you know, Spider-Man?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not like Wolverine's ever really... since they did the soft reboot of the universe, he hasn't really played that big of a key role.
Yeah.
On the old cast.
Yeah.
Or the new cast, I should say. But...
yeah,
so
I mean, Iron Man is 3 or 4 years older than Wolverine. Iron Man is 51. Hugh is 48. So they're not that far apart in age difference. And you're right. I think what the thing with him aging out is how he looks in the Logan movie. Like, he's meant to be the old Wolverine. Obviously, this movie, because our good buddy Ryan, the Uneven Flow Merkley from thisweekingeek.net, that does the Twig stuff with me, and we should have him on here sometime, because that would be an interesting episode. But it's one of those things where he and I were talking about this last week, right before the trailer, one of the last TV trailers dropped or something. And I asked him, I said, so is this supposed to be loosely based on the Old Man Logan story? And he said, no, it's just Hugh looking like an older Wolverine. And I think that's probably why people are saying that he's getting to the point where he needs to age out and retire. But, I mean, if Downey Jr. at 51 can still jump in an iron suit, I'm sure Hugh at 48 can still pop the claws.
Yeah. And I'm sure he still would.
Absolutely. If the money was
offered.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think that. Like, he took a massive pay cut just so that they could make Logan rated R. because he knew he was like, you know, a big star and everything. He just was like, look, I really want to do this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, like I'm really glad that they're doing this. I actually can't wait to see the movie.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
But yeah, I would love to see him show up in
Avengers.
yeah.
Yeah, Logan's gonna be awesome because that's the oldest I've ever seen Professor X. Like, he looks like he's been through some crap. Like Patrick Stewart's makeup in the car scene where they're sitting in the car, the dude looks like he's ancient.
Well, he's supposed to be in his 90s.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to suffer from like kind of a massive muscle spasm type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he, in doing so, it makes him like his mind has a spasm as well.
Mm.
And so he ends up creating this like shockwave zone around himself
Okay.
that hurts everybody around him.
Aha.
Which is why in some of the trailer stuff you see that weird looking, like him laying on the ground doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and then that weird kind of shockwave thing around Wolverine.
Yeah.
Which I almost thought was like a berserker thing on him to begin with, and then I was like, no, it's
Yeah.
it's the Xavier thing. And I'm almost wondering if like either the
Brotherhood.
yeah, kill
Xavier.
Xavier, or if Logan has to do it.
That'd be interesting.
Because I'm thinking that they have to put him down.
Yeah.
But, you know, who knows? It's movies.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of another set of movies, with Ben Affleck dropping out from the director chair of The Batman, they had a couple different directors in talks to do it, and Matt Reeves,
Mm-hmm.
who I'm not really familiar with too much of his IMDb record.
Yeah, I've never heard of him until these talks. So,
Which is funny because people have been going, "Oh yeah, he's an awesome choice," blah blah blah, and I'm like, I've never heard of this dude. But I think part of it too is like he's been written and directed and like produced like Felicity, that show.
yeah, he's a J.J. Abrams student. Yeah.
Well, he also did. He was a director of Cloverfield, which I did not like. He was the producer of 10 Cloverfield Lane. He was the director of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Okay, yeah.
And the writer and director of War for Planet of the Apes that's coming out this year.
Yeah.
He's going to be.
Yeah, I've never cared for the Apes movies, so I wouldn't have even.
Those were actually pretty good.
I'm sure they are. I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying that's not like the closest thing I come to Planet of the Apes is, oh great, Spaceballs. Well, the world's screwed. You know, that's the closest I come to Planet of the Apes.
But anyways, I've watched a lot of those Planet of the Apes movies. They're actually pretty good. But they very much fit that DC extended universe, Warner Brothers, like dark, gritty, gothic look. Just like the Harry Potter or the DC stuff or the Lord of the Rings or, you know, any of those tentpole franchises.
Yeah.
So he's going to fit in really well with the DCU. I just don't know how it's going to play out. He's producing and directing the Batman.
Right.
And so far the only like confirmed people he's the director. They still have Ben Affleck and Jeff Johns as the screenplay.
Yeah.
And Chris Terrio, and then you got Ben Affleck, Joe Manganiello, and then J.K. Simmons and Jeremy Irons, and that's the only
cast so far.
Yeah.
And that's fine, honestly. Like
And I try not to dive too much into the rumor mill. I mean, there's really nothing rumored to go for here.
We talked about this a couple of times ago, a couple episodes ago, when Ben first announced that he was dropping the director chair, and I saw a quote from him on one of these reputable websites that says, I need to focus on the role. I can't do that if I'm in the director's chair. I think I said this last week or the week before. I'm happy that he understands that he needs to focus on the role of Batman Bruce Wayne and not just be I'm not saying he would half-ass it, but just being able to half-ass it at the same time as directing. So I'm fine with Affleck not direct. Now, if it's something where Batman only has one or two scenes, like if he's just got a spot cameo, like say in a second Justice League movie or something, like we all know Batman's been a part-time. He's always been a part-timer when it comes to the Justice League. He's never been a full-fledged member.
Until now.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where, we could have a movie where he shows up sporadically, but it isn't full. Like, say the second Justice League movie, whatever it's going to be, if it even ever happens, is focused on Superman and Wonder Woman and whatever. It's not focused on Batman being part of the story. He's there, but he's not the main crux of the plot of the film. Ben could probably direct that one. But because, again, I think the other reason that he dropped the director's chair on the Batman is because he got a piss poor entrance. He didn't really get to fill the shoes of the character in BVS in my mind.
What happened?
Go ahead.
The movie was so poorly received as a whole because the best parts in it were with him, with Alfred, and with Wonder Woman.
Yep.
The rest of the movie was garbage.
Yep.
And so the movie was so poorly released that he watched how bad Snyder got beat up over that film, and he's like, nope, not for me. Because he's got a reputable reputation for directing and writing good movies.
Yep.
So I'm thinking he's backed away from that because he's like, look, I can at least say I'm the actor. I just took direction. I didn't have anything to do with it.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is, and this is something I've said multiple times since Altered Geek has launched, since we first started with the BS that is BVS news way back when. And I know people are tired of it. I know you and everyone else is tired of me repeating this. They should have done Man of Steel 2, had Clark deal with the repercussions of his actions. At the end of that movie, introduce Batman, go to Justice League, and then have everybody that was in Justice League branch off into their own damn movies. So you could have the Batman after Justice League.
Theoretically, though, they started their tentpole incorrectly. They should have started with the Batman from the get-go.
Well, yeah.
And then shot off from there because Batman is like the longest running superhero, like next to like Wonder Woman, for instance. But
technically Superman.
Superman not really.
Yeah, Superman came 1938, a year before Batman.
What I'm getting at is that, garbage aside, Batman has always been the bigger seller between the two.
Okay, I'll let the audience argue with you on that.
I'm saying, like, look at the films too.
No,
like,
okay, yes. If you look at just the films, and that's fine.
Well, I'm saying, like, Batman as a whole has had more popular and more exposure from the films itself and from the animated series, and more, success.
Yeah, I will agree
any
with that.
Superman.
I mean, if you look at Batman and Superman, just in the live action movies, Superman had 4 films. He had Returns, so that's the 5th film, which technically that was a copycat of the original 2nd film or 1st film or whatever. And then you got Man of Steel, so that's 7. And then BVS, that's 8. And then Batman has had the 66 movie. He's had 89, 92, 95, and then 2005 to 2012 or whenever Dark Knight Rises came out. So, I mean, Batman has had more. You're right. I'm not saying that. I'm saying overall, there's a reason why Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are the Holy Trinity, are the Holy Grail when it comes to the DC big. There's a reason why they're called the Big Three. Yes, Wonder Woman has, I don't want to say quite literally, but she has gotten the shaft over the last 70 plus years when it comes to movies and.
Well, it's also the fact that Batman is a safe bet.
Yeah.
And more people like Batman. And then they tried to turn Superman essentially into Batman being a brooding dick, and it didn't work out for him. And then they intended to use him as the starting of the universe, and although they did do that, it's very forced. So again, only time will tell. But there has been rumors of the Lego Batman director.
Lego Batman 2, you mean?
No, Lego Batman director. Has been in talks of possibly writing and directing a Nightwing movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
And
oh, damn time.
Well, and this is the other thing too. There's rumor floating about that he, that he may show up in the Batman.
Yeah.
With Batman's fight with Deathstroke.
That'd be cool.
Which people are also kind of guessing that it could even be Armie Hammer.
No.
The original Batman choice.
No.
Well, there's not going to be any perfect pick for Nightwing. There's just not. There's people petitioning either way. There's people complaining because they're like, "Oh, great, they're going to make another white character."
Please don't finish that sentence.
I've seen that floating around on social media.
Please don't finish that sentence.
Why?
Just don't want to get it.
Well, like I saw somebody post earlier today because Boss Logic, I don't know if you've heard of him. He does a lot of the Photoshop stuff, like with the mock images of characters that are on websites. He gets paid to do all that. So he created a mock image of Stephen R. McQueen, what he would look like as Nightwing, and it looks basically like the comics. And he's a 28-year-old actor. Could fit the role. I don't know, but that was like who he was pining for. But he says, for all we know, Armie Hammer could be Nightwing. Just saying, because again, he's been featured on set with some of the people that are in the Batman. Not on set, but like with some of the meeting with some of the people. Yeah. So anyways, so earlier today, somebody commented to him and says, or Stephen Young or Ryan Potter, or a bunch of other people, and says anyone else other than another safe white dude. And then he says, if this is going to escalate into a race thing, he's like, I'll let you guys discuss this alone. This seems to always happen. It's like, just pick somebody that can act.
Yeah.
Because like they chose all like Chinese people, or not Chinese people, but like people that don't have like like standard American white descent.
Yeah. Okay, so look, we have an African American Bat character, Luke Fox as Batwing. We don't. I don't know. Whatever. Let's just move on. Let's move on to feedback or whatever else you want to talk about. This is just like
I'm curious what people have to say about it.
We are going to dig ourselves in a really deep hole if this continues.
Hey, controversy is fun.
Last thing this show needs is to lose listeners.
I doubt that'll happen. You got to push the envelope a little bit. I'm not saying I support either direction. There's a difference in pushing the envelope and tearing it in half. Hey, I didn't touch either side of that envelope. I didn't even have my hands on the envelope.
One half's black,
merely read. Light. I merely read what someone else said. I didn't say I agreed with either side. I do agree with Boss Logic in the sense that if it comes down to a race thing, I'm not going to get into it. But that's just because you're fighting a losing battle already when you start in that. Yep. So, getting into feedback Brad Lincoln says, first, love the new theme song. Thanks again. He says, great touch. Reminds me a lot of Twig, which is actually funny because when I commissioned it originally, I sent them Twig's theme song as a what I was hoping to get out of it. And so, yeah, that's what I got out of it. Because I liked the Twig theme song, and I was like, it's original. I've liked it since I heard it the first time. And so I wanted to get in that direction and, just basically have my own version of that. So thankfully I do now. He says, I did have a question for you all. What are your thoughts on the whole PewDiePie debacle as of late? Do you agree his content crossed the line, or was the Wall Street Journal's article overreacting? Are you even familiar with this?
No.
It's I've watched enough of it, like between YouTubers commenting like Philip DeFranco. I watch Philip DeFranco because more often than not, I agree with most of the stuff he says. PewDiePie I find to be an annoying. He's a Swedish web-based comedian, web video producer, known for Let's Plays, commentaries, and vlogs on YouTube, and also he's like a big internet troll. He's like one that for whatever reason people keep following. He's 27. He's recently had his YouTube Red show taken away. He's had basically I think he was involved with Maker Studios too, and I think they which is owned by Disney. All these studios basically cut him loose because they're like, yep, we're not getting involved with this, because he had this basically what happened is he started this whole thing that ended up turning into a news against him. They were trying to destroy him.
Right.
The news was
Right.
New York Times and all these Wall Street Journal and stuff like that, because I'm trying to find the exact, because I don't want to misquote this.
It's basically he said something because they said something about him, and because he said
No, he did something first, because he likes to go for these outrageous type of
okay.
videos and stuff. So what had happened is he did a one of the videos identified by the Journal featured a man dressed as Jesus saying Hitler did absolutely nothing wrong. But he paid somebody on Fiverr to do this, just to show that people will do anything for money. Which
there are just okay. Look, there.
And he hired he hired two men to make and display a sign that said "Death to all Jews." Which
this is just
he's again a giant internet troll. So, anyways, he removed the videos.
Well, somebody needs to burn his bridge down, so he'll just.
He already burned that bridge, but because what happened is he got. I think he was being fined or something, but he's got one of the largest audiences on YouTube with 53 million subscribers, and YouTube had canceled his Scare PewDiePie season 2, and Maker Studios, which he's affiliated with, dropped him because again it's Disney owned. So yeah, do I think that they were, he says, this was his reply. I think it's important to say that I wanted to make one thing clear. I'm in no way supporting any kind of hateful attitudes, though this was not my intention. I understand that these jokes were ultimately offensive. He's got very far reaching,
we've had
offensive jokes, and I've had my occasional offensive jokes, but they're not
they're in good taste.
That.
They're not.
Yeah, they're in good taste.
There's just certain things you do not say. There are certain things you do not talk about openly with people.
Those are especially those are really touchy areas for anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're still hate-filled attitudes. I think he should have known better than to do something like that.
Yeah.
For a shock jock like he is, Do I agree with the companies kind of taking everything away from him? Kind of, because that's a legal dispute
he
and it
screwed
could
up.
fine
Yeah.
them. So in that sense, like I kind of agree with them with how they did it.
Yeah.
Now, did it need to get plastered all over the internet and all these news sites like bashing him consistently?
No.
No, but it's the day and age where, you know, if you're not, I mean, and this isn't even being politically correct. This is just having common sense to have good taste in content.
Yeah.
Like I would not ever make, you know, it'd be one thing if he was doing like a, you know, like documentary movie of something that actually happened
Yeah.
and having referenced that, but like yeah.
It's just no. Let's just move on.
Yeah, but anyways, that was the question. But like I think that and now too, like some YouTubers are getting that don't support him are getting critiqued now. As I'm reading, like they're getting like the ones that don't 100% support him
I
are getting,
don't.
you know, dragged through the mud because of that. Like, and it's no different than like things that happen in like politics and stuff. Like people that have a problem with, you know, somebody, they just, if you don't support one side, you're against them. You know, and it's not even that. The internet is so full of, and this is why this fits so perfectly with that bullying thing that I wanted to do.
Well, we're gonna do that.
Because,
We're gonna talk about that.
and I'm not going to go into detail on
Not
that
yeah,
project yet,
that's later.
but I and I'll divulge this. I chopped up a 52-minute episode we did 5 years ago,
Yeah.
for a school assignment because it was very fitting.
Mhm.
And as the Geekcast Radio Network is known for, predicting the future, especially in that year 2012, something about that year, we just constantly were
It was
like,
the end of the Mayan calendar, so
well, it's weird because like I predicted Disney was going to buy Marvel or Lucasfilms.
yeah.
I predicted that they were going to buy Marvel. There was a couple other things I predicted too that happened.
Yeah.
And then I predicted what was it? Didn't you watch like Dallas or something and then that show
Yeah.
I said it's all right, it'll make it to the end of the season, it'll get canceled before renewal time. And then I was right on that too.
Honestly, seriously, unless I'm watching something for research, or unless I'm grabbing a clip, or unless I'm watching next week's promos for the TV shows I watch, I don't pay attention to controversial crap on YouTube. I just don't, because YouTube is a hotbed.
Well, it's not even on YouTube. I've just seen it all over the internet.
I understand that, but I'm saying like YouTube, like you were saying, YouTubers came out and went against him, and because of that, they started losing. I don't give a crap if they're losing viewers because they don't agree with some idiot that has some distorted worldview.
Anyways, he was a shock jock, but same distance. But and then a couple episodes, or like from an episode ago before this last one, Brad Mole had feedback saying that because we were talking about the Adam Sandler thing coming back.
Yeah.
He says, I'm not normally a fan of old films or actors coming back per se. He says, I still feel Jim Carrey has a good film left in him. A good film left in him. I don't know if I'd have a new Ace Ventura or Mask film. Dumb and Dumber kind of proved that.
Yeah.
But hey, Keaton's back in comic book films, so there's always a chance. I would be down for an Ace Ventura 3.
Well, the difference with Keaton is he was in 2 Batman movies and then he moved on to other stuff. He was in movies before Batman 89. You know, he was, in other things. He never really got typecast as Batman. You know, he was in Toy Story as the voice of Toy Story 3 as the voice of Ken, the Barbie doll.
Well, he was typecast as Batman for a
Well,
while. But
yeah, at the time he was, but
he still says he's Batman.
yeah, and that's fine. He was the one that relaunched and launched the darker version of Batman into the mainstream media and whatever else, and there's no denying that. But I'm saying that before and after the Batman movies that he was in, I've known him for other things besides Batman. So,
Multiplicity.
Yep.
What's that other one Johnny Dangerously.
Yep.
So last bit of feedback we have from Scanner 51. He says, great show as always. I wanted to thank Mike for being able to answer my question last time, but I'm also glad I was able to stump Steve.
What was the question? And we got to make Stump Steve a weekly thing.
He says, it was the guilty, geeky guilty pleasures.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
And I was like, I have no idea, absolutely. Like,
yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I remember now.
So he says, hope this new one doesn't.
It does.
I don't think it will. I've already had a chance to look it over. Out of all your favorite passions, which is one you love to put out there the most? The one you like to brag about? He says, mine is Sailor Moon. I love Sailor Moon. I love Batman and DC, but I love Sailor Moon. I will brag to people that I used to run home, and I mean that from 7th and 8th grade to see the show. I'm currently on a rewatch of the show, the new dubs, and I'm watching Sailor Moon Crystal, the reboot. At the same time, there have been only 2 shows that have made me feel I had the need to watch. Sailor Moon is one of them, the other harder to explain, and for a different email.
You go first, Mr. Stump.
I'm not stumped. So I would say, and this is like aside from my well-known Star Trek and Batman and DCAU love, or Transformers, because obviously Transformers has stuck with me pretty much a long time. It was actually my first website I ever built was Transformers related, and then much of them thereafter. But I would have to say that would be Dragon Ball Z. Which if that show ever gets off the ground, I'll be very surprised. So that would be one of my things, because like I remember when I first started watching that show, the original dubs of them were Ian James Corlett, aka Cheetor, was Goku. And then it didn't make it very much farther than that. It made it through like the Raditz saga, which Dragon Ball Z, there's like 12 sagas, it seems like. And it rebooted again, and then they had Sean Schemmel as Goku. Right. And so then I watched that all the way through, like, rabidly. I would run home. I was like the walking encyclopedia of Dragon Ball Z at school. I had the Dragon Ball Z website. My friend and I in 7th and 8th grade wrote Dragon Ball Z fan dubs, or not fan dubs, fan fiction, where we crossed and mixed Dragon Ball Z universe with Mega Man X. It was actually really cool. They were very short stories. I think the longest one was like 32 pages, and the shortest one was like 11. But we made like, I think 8 stories. Yeah, there was like 5, 3, and then 2, because I ended up having to finish the series. And then I had all these grand plans to like finish it, never got around to it. And then I eventually dropped that like a bad habit, went back to Transformers. But I've been meaning to get back to Dragon Ball Z for years, ever since they came out with Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is like it's like a redub of Dragon Ball Z with most of the same actors. And they cut out all of the filler. So like where you would have like the extenuating stories that would last, and backlogs and everything else that would last. Like you could take a saga that would have like 30 episodes, and Dragon Ball Z Kai would knock it down to like 10. So you'd actually get through a fight in like realistic time, instead of and then they're powering up, and then you just hear somebody just like monologuing for like the entire episode.
Right, yeah.
So like that's what essentially they did in Kai, and I haven't had a chance to check it out, but I know that they cut out like the Buu saga in that. And then there's Dragon Ball Z Super, which is now being dubbed here in America on by Funimation, and I can't wait to get back into that, because then basically it wipes out Dragon Ball GT, which was not done by the original creator. And this follows like the last 2 Dragon Ball Z movies. So I'm very glad to see that come back. So like I would say that would be one of my favorite passions that I don't unfortunately get around too much to getting into. But whenever I can talk about it, I really enjoy it. it's also one of those video games that when I get them, I will play the crap out of them. But if they don't have Goku hits, like at the time, this was before Super came out. If they didn't have Goku hit Super Saiyan 4, or like you could turn him into Gogeta, which is like the merging of him and Vegeta, I didn't want to play it. I would trade in the stupid game. I would be like, all right, I'm done. I've done the whole Dragon Ball Z saga. Time to move on to the next game.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't even have a game console anymore, so I got to figure that system out when I when I want the next Dragon Ball Z game. I guess I got to look for the computer.
Yep.
But yeah, that would be my geeky passion. That
for me, it's pretty simple, and it's something I've never been able to do because I've always felt that something else was going on, and I didn't want to step on anyone else's toes. But honestly, for me, it's video games. And I'm not talking modern video games. I'm talking video games that we grew up with. Mario, Duck Hunt, Mario 3, Super Mario World, Zelda, things like that. One of the one franchises that I've paid attention to for as long as I've known about it is Need for Speed. Absolutely love those games. Yeah. Absolutely love those games. I don't care what anyone says. I did enjoy the movie for what it is. I enjoyed it for the acting. The Need for Speed movie does not need a super intricate story. The story that they had was pretty cool. And then they had Batman as the guy running the race because Michael Keaton was the guy. I'm like, hey, it's Batman. So, but yeah, video games is something that, and normally for me, when I am most passionate about something, I will start a podcast series about it, whether it's within All Things Transformers, whether it's a separate podcast series completely for a whole new show. That's normally what I do. That's just my thing. And video games, we've been holding on to ERG for the longest time, and we're gonna get it off the ground eventually. But, it'll happen when it happens.
it makes me want to erg when I think about it. God. What's funny is I actually created that original name.
It was XRG.
Well,
and
even before that.
Yeah, and now it's ERG.
Well, XRG originally started. Well, it originally actually did start as ERG.
Oh, okay.
I will have to dig it up.
Okay.
I have. Well, I think it's actually humorous, but I'll eventually when I find these files.
You know what they always say when it comes to Transformers: the seeds of the future lie buried in the past.
It's so freaking true.
Yep.
It is so freaking true.
Yep. Any other feedback that we need to respond to?
No, I think that's about it. So until next time, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks.